Originally, the idea came from dreams. I used to dream about the character that I've turned into Atkinson quite frequently, and I kept notes on him from being a kid because I used to write the stories, and I just developed from that dream. After the dream, and once the Reaper series had started, I then added different characters to add to the story, and each one, thankfully, has worked. So basically, first off, the dream; secondly, imagination, just adding to a story to, enlighten it a bit. The first book, Atkinson's Administration, was published in February 2012. That was a good while after I started writing it. I began about 2 years before that publishing day, and only wrote it on and off, whereas now I'm writing all the time. But that was 2012, fairly early on, and we've just gone on since. When I wrote the first book, I did realise it could go on, and I thought of making it a trilogy. Atkinson's Armageddon came not long afterwards. I started writing that at the same time as I was writing A Switch in Time, and the story developed where I began to work harder with the main guy and started adding others, and I also added a little quest. From then, I went straight into the following one, Adversary, more or less straight away, because the story just continued on, almost as if I hadn't stopped. It just carried on and on and on, and as that came to an end, I broke off for a while to finish Switch in Time. From Switch in Time, I then went to Adversary, then Apprentice. And in Apprentice, I brought in all the new characters that I were going to need for the final books. Then, from then, straight into the fifth book, and there was no stopping, because the fifth book and sixth book were written within 4 months. And the only reason to stop was to actually send the fifth book off to the publishers, but while that were away, I was deep into the next book, and that brings us to where we are now. Everyone in the Reaper series, everybody's face in that series is somebody that I know. The way I write, I put a face to a character. The people that I choose are not necessarily like the characters. One or two are. Gavin Jackson, for instance, is basically the guy, Gavin Johnson, who I chose. But Atkinson, most certainly, the guy I chose for him most certainly isn't a dark person. And I just chose the characters' faces from friends of mine. But the characters all now come from my imagination. I had the original character, who I call Atkinson, from the dreams, and everyone else is from my own personal imagination. Obviously, Mother Nature ain't mine, but she just sort of bobbed into the story midway through and has become quite a key player in it. The prequels, first one is already published, because that's a switch in time. That became a prequel because the main character in it actually turned up in Atkinson's Apocalypse. Quite out of blue. It wasn't planned. She was one of the several industrialists that was interviewed within the book. And I had written 5-6 paragraphs with her in it before I even realised that she was from an earlier book. Then that made me reconsider some of the things that I'd put in that earlier book. A little bit of rewriting went on, and lo and behold, that book became the first prequel. There will be 2 more. The next one, which I'm on with now, is called A Woman at the Helm, and it continues from where Switch left off, carrying on not only in the Victorian era and now, but also the brother in the book gets sent back to medieval times to learn how to build a windmill and a watermill. When that's complete, there will be the 3rd and final prequel, which will totally marry the first 2 books with the series. That one will be called A Date with the Reaper, and that's where the characters from A Switch in Time from this century meet up with the accountants at Atkinson and Dewhurst. When I did the final 2 books, just like when I finished administration, the realization was the story could still go on, and it can go on in many different veins, because in Apocalypse, apart from the new characters, there are different beasts that are very much story-worthy, that have come back to the plane of existence, and it is quite possible that Atkinson will carry on in several different strains of the story. I still have lots of different types of stories. Stories that I wrote when I was a child. Stories written through my teens. Stories that I wrote basically all through my life that never materialised into anything because I put a stop to them all. There are several books that I've all now jostling to be the next thing that I do. One of them is actually a children's book that I've been wanting to write for a number of years now, and all being well, that will follow the Reaper series when it's actually finished. My team is a fantastic little team. I'm just a small part of it. I come up with the story, and I type that story out, and I have the first, well, every book so far, with the exception of 2 or 3, has been checked over by my muse, my wife Beverly. The inspiration behind all of this, what I do, everything that I write, I read to her so that she can tell me if it sounds good. She checks me on all manner of things. If I'm repeating anything, she's straight in and she'll say, you know, don't do that, which I need through reasons that I've been through before. My rest of my team is absolutely brilliant. I have, without doubt, some of the best book covers out there, and they come from the imagination of two guys at a firm called V Edition Media. On a lot of them, I've given them a basic idea which they've looked at, and they have sometimes put that idea onto the book cover. Sometimes have just said that won't work, and they come up with something that blows my mind. Every time they come up with a new cover, it's better than the one before. And this last one is absolutely brilliant. It's everything that I wanted it to be. It's a perfect end to the story as it is now, because I have Atkinson on it. Is in the guise of what I first wanted, but for one reason or another could never format it. And it has my wife Beverly on it. She is Mother Nature, and it rounds it off perfectly. Everybody on my covers are people that I know. Everybody that's in the character bios is people that I know, and I see them all as part of my team. But my writing team consists of myself, my wife Beverly, and V Edition Media.